Hey lady, welcome to the Postpartum on Purpose podcast. If we haven't met, my name is Anne Marie. I'm wife to James and mom to 5 beautiful kids ages 9 and under with 1 miscarried baby. Here we see postpartum all the way from birth to the first year of life as a time of grit, growth, and grace. This is episode 71. Hi lady, I hope you're so well. I wanted to talk this week. If you're listening in real time, it's getting close to Christmas. We're in the first week of December. Advent just started on Sunday. But I wanted to talk about something that should be hopefully especially helpful this time of year, but also be evergreen, meaning that at any time during your postpartum journey and beyond, you could listen to it and gain something from it. I hope it's most helpful right now. Let's get into it after briefly covering 3 things and 1 small change. 3 things this week. This is a banner month for me because December is my birthday month. And excuse me, as you know, all of the places like to send you a little birthday reward. I got $5 off at Best Buy, which if you go to Best Buy or shop there, you know nothing electronic costs $5. But at the checkout counter, they have snacks you can buy, and that's what we did. My kids and I bought snacks for when we get cranky in the car from Best Buy. That was free to us, but just funny. And then also, here's what's really fun. I got $5 from Ace Hardware. I don't know if they have Ace everywhere in the country or not, but they do in Illinois where I live. And yes, they're hardware stores. Do I ever go to hardware stores? No, I don't. Do I know how I got my information to Ace Hardware? No, I have no idea. But my husband has to get oil change stuff for my vehicle soon. And where do you think he's going to be getting it from now? Thanks to my $5 off reward, Ace Hardware. I got also $10 to a local microbrewery and $10 from Loft for my birthday month. I think these are all birthday month things. And they haven't sent it yet, but Chick-fil-A is going to be sending some type of free brownie, cookie, something. Soma, which is a like bra and underwear pajamas company, they sent something. And you bet your girl found a $5 pair of cozy fuzzy socks. They're not even for me. I just want to be able to give fun, cool things to other people. And so I used my $5 from Soma to get magenta or fuchsia. I get confused on the difference. Some type of purpley fuzzy sock that somebody will be receiving. If you're somebody that's close to me that listens to this podcast, maybe it'll be you. I don't know. I think those are the 3 things. Oh, and then one other thing. I got a book today that was signed by the author, and it's called Is Fred in the Refrigerator? Taming OCD and Reclaiming My Life. It's by a lady who is an expert in OCD. She's experienced it herself and is also now a therapist. Shayla, Shala, nicely. I've mentioned her on here a time or 2 before, but she sends out a monthly newsletter that I receive via email and asked for feedback on something a month or 2 ago. And I sent it, and she said she'd pick 2 winners from the respondents to send a signed copy of her book, her memoir. And I was one of the 2. I'm very grateful. That came in the mail today. It's actually been exposure and response prevention therapy for me to read it, because if you experience anxiety yourself, you know to some extent the tendency or temptation to think, oh, I can't hear about X, Y, or Z because then I'll worry about that thing happening to me too. Like if it didn't occur to me to worry about it before, but once I read about it, I will, or I have to. I say that have to in quotation marks. Of course, that's not really true. But it's going to be good ERP for me to read it and to expose myself to uncomfortable thoughts, intrusive thoughts that were really uncomfortable to somebody else, and to accept whatever anxiety those bring and then let the anxiety go back down. Those are a wrap on 3 things for this week. The small change is twofold. 1 for me, 1 for the baby. The 1 small change is I am almost, as of a week from tomorrow, so by the time I record the next episode, I will be just about 6 months postpartum on the dot. And I am down 20 pounds from when I gave birth. And I think 34 pounds is what I gained total for the pregnancy. The point of that is not to say like you need to gain more or less or whatever. It's not comparison, but just to say, okay, I was up 34 when I gave birth. I'm down about 20 now. And you could look at that a bunch of different ways, and you are free to look at it however you choose. But I'm looking at it as, yeah, of course I was down about 8 just by getting out of the hospital when I came home without the baby in my belly, but in my arms. There was a certain amount of weight loss there. But this has been the best postpartum, I think, in terms of for a while, I was tracking my weight once a week. And then about 3 weeks ago, I just stopped and it sort of drifted away. I drifted away from that idea, not so much that I purposefully stopped, but just I drifted away from it. I was focusing on other things. And then I noticed a couple of days ago that my pants seemed to be fitting better. Now, some of that may be my laundering practices because once upon a time, I washed my jeans almost every time I wore them. Ever since reading the book Laundry Love that my aunt recommended to me, I am washing things much, much less in order to preserve the life of the fabric and just spraying them with vodka. I can't remember if I've talked about this before. Maybe we'll talk about it in a future episode. Spraying them with vodka to kill all the bacteria that makes clothes stink. So if there are no stains on my jeans, for instance, I am not washing them very frequently at all. And from that, they tend to stretch out a little bit more. So it may be six of one, half dozen of the other, without the benefit of a scale to put some objectivity into the conversation. But yeah, so I thought my pants were fitting a little bit better, a little bit looser, and I hopped on the scale to see, and it was down like 5 pounds from whenever I checked last, which, like I said, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago. But that's pretty good considering Thanksgiving. And all of that is simply to say the one small change is that my weight is slowly shifting, but it is shifting, I think, in the healthiest way possible this time. And I have never been one who has struggled with disordered eating, meaning anorexia or bulimia. That's not been part of my experience or part of my story. But I have always been aware of what my weight was and feeling more or less uncomfortable about it. But I think now that I'm getting old, now that I'm 35 and I've done this 5 times before, I'm approaching a place of acceptance for other things are a bigger priority to me than weight loss. One of those things is nourishing myself well so that I actually have the energy to go about my day, including to move, and then also incorporating movement as I am up to it and incorporating little bits of movement throughout my day, which again, everything sort of, I'm putting my hands kind of in this like wave motion, but to just say like things are dovetailing, things will go together. More movement, more nourishment, weight loss is happening, but it's happening slowly and gradually in a way that is not, for sure, not as a baseline, for sure not taking my milk supply, but also not at the forefront of my brain, meaning that it can go sort of back a little bit. It happens, but it's not the goal. It's not the focus, the priority. I've talked in the last couple months about identifying what is most important to you right now. Like, sure, there are lots of things that could be important to you, but what is most important to you right now? And this is something that could have been important to me, was somewhat important to me, but not the most important thing. And I found that to be a healthy place for weight loss in terms of prioritization, that it's something I am aware of, but not the main goal. I don't know, lady, if any of that helps you, but I will just say that I am very grateful anytime that I can say this time is going better than a time before. And that reminds me sort of tangentially, but I dropped off a meal for somebody yesterday and I have only known the husband and I've known him peripherally for however many years. And once upon a time, he just looked like a real kind of, I don't know, just kind of a nervous sort of a guy, not real self-confident. But I hadn't seen him in many years and then found out that, he's gotten married and got in touch with me and about different things over time. And then I went and brought a meal to the family and he looks great. And I don't mean like, oh, he looks so good. No, that's not, but just like he looks better. He looks better than he did before. Marriage has clearly been good for him. Father's been good for him. And I love to be able to say that, right? Don't we love to be able to say that about somebody? Like they look better now than they did before. Something is good in their life that is better than it was before. And I love to be able to say that. And I hope that you pay attention to that in your own life with your own small change, one small change every week, every month, every whatever throughout postpartum is this idea of like, yeah, things don't just have to get worse over time. Things can get better. We can learn. We become more experienced. I could go so many directions with that, but I just want to put that out there. I love to be able to look at things and say, this is going better than it was before. Something is getting better. Something is going well. All right. And then the second thing is just, it's a baby developmental milestone. My daughter, who's almost 6 months old, is now able to roll from back to front and front to back. And I never say right which one is harder. Is it when it's on your back rolling to your front? That's what it is. That's what it is. I always say it wrong. Moving from your back onto your front. My daughter can do that now. And I just love it. It's a good thing. It's a way to be able to track, like, oh my goodness, you're growing up. You're so big. I joke now with people that see her. Even my pelvic floor therapist saw her yesterday, 2 days ago, and she hadn't seen her since 2 weeks back. And said, she looks so much bigger and she's huge now. And I was like, yeah, she is big. She's halfway grown up. But when you're only 6 months old, a lot changes in 2 weeks. And I hope that you, dear friend, dear lady, I hope that you're able to see some of that for yourself and your child as well. All right, the focus of today. It is 10 minutes in. Mercy. The focus of today is the alternative to batch cooking or freezer meal prep. And you may have heard, if you're pregnant right now, you may have been told by everybody and their brother you need to batch prep meals before the baby comes. Or maybe the baby has come and that just didn't happen. And I will just lay it right there on the line for you and tell you that I have not ever, that I can remember. The first one was obviously a while ago now, but to my knowledge, to my recollection, I have never actually batch prepped meals before the baby came. Like, I have never had a bunch of meals in the freezer. Now, have people made them for me? Occasionally. Before the baby came, I think I had, before Cecilia came, I think I had 2 meals in the freezer. I think I had taco soup and tater tot casserole that were made for me by somebody else. But that was it. And that is not something that I did for myself. Here's what I have found to be more helpful. It's called Save a Step Cooking, and I learned it from Lila Lawler's The Summa Domestica trilogy, and she pointed out that its advantage over batch cooking or cooking a lot of meals at one time is that it doesn't take the amount of energy and effort and just like getting ready to get going, like the motivation that it takes to, you have to overcome inertia, is that right? Overcome the tendency to not want to do something. That's taken way down by Save a Step Cooking. You're not buying all of the ingredients at once. You're not trying to do everything at once. You're doing a little bit extra as often as you can. Save a Step Cooking. If you are making a meal today, what can you add to it or double or increase or just save for later from this meal that will help you get another meal in the future on the table more easily? And if you've been with me from early on, and you know I've talked ad nauseum about Kendra Adachi, the lazy genius, and how she talks about the magic question, asking the magic question, which is, what's one small thing I can do now to make life easier later? Save a Step Cooking is this idea of, is there anything I can do in this meal that will stretch to benefit a future meal? And I would even say you could go a little bit further beyond something I can do in this particular meal, but also just with the food that I have. With the food that I have. Maybe it's something that I don't want to go bad. My neighbor brought over 3 tomatoes recently. We don't eat a ton of tomatoes, frankly. I put them in things such as a chili or a soup, perhaps, but I don't just eat straight up tomatoes unless I am making salsa or my husband's making pico de gallo. But I wanted to keep these tomatoes because we would use them at some point for something, and I chopped them up and put them in a Tupperware, and they're in the freezer now. I know you can blanch vegetables where you heat them to boiling for 3 minutes and then plunge them into an ice bath. Just to be frank with you, I've never done that in my life. Could you do that? Is that not a big deal for other people to do? Yes and yes. Yes and yes to both. But it is not worth it to me. And the only veggies that I chop up and put in the freezer are ones that I'm not going to eat raw, so to speak, once they come out. I'm not thawing them to eat them by themselves. I'm thawing them to put them into something else. A pot pie, a stew, a chili, a soup, a something crock-potty. They are going to be a soft or soggy texture when they come out. And for that reason, it doesn't really matter to me to try to preserve the crisp factor when they're going in the freezer. But Save a Step Cooking. What can I do now that will stretch a little bit further later on? If I am going to make bread, if I'm going to the trouble of making bread, could I make 2 yeasts and then use some for another loaf or another 2 loaves? Could I throw those loaves in the freezer? Or without even cooking, could I put a dough in the freezer for the future and roll it out for a pizza dough? Could I get a family pack of chicken instead of just a small amount for the one meal from the grocery store? Can I get that family pack of chicken? Can I cook it up? And can I take a third of it, even just a third of it? Maybe I need most of the pack of chicken, but can I cut up and save a third of it for a future meal? Maybe I'm going to mix it with Potatoes. Maybe I'm going to put it in chicken pot pie. Maybe it's going into white bean and chicken chili. I don't know, but it's already seasoned. It's already cooked. If I see meat on sale at the store and I'm going to make some ground beef for tacos, let's say, can I season a whole bunch of that meat? And instead of making a pound, I'll make two. Instead of making 2 pounds, I'll make four. Could I do two skillets at one time? Is that possible for me? Right? Things that are just a touch more work than what I'm doing right now, with the goal of being able to use that in the future to make a future homemade meal less stressful, less effort, still delicious, still nutritious. Things that I could do with ground beef that is in the freezer. I could turn it into chili. I could turn it into meatballs, by which I just mean meat mixed with the spaghetti. And I'm not actually doing that, for the record. I don't prefer noodles. My husband might be doing that. But could I put ground beef in the freezer for him to use for spaghetti in the future? What about tacos, burritos, nachos, enchiladas, meatloaf, sloppy joes? There's a ton of stuff you can do with ground beef. Similarly with chicken. And you might be thinking, Anne Marie, oh my goodness, tell me something I don't already know. I already do all this stuff. Lady, I'm so impressed by you. Go you. That's great. That's great. Then maybe what's the one next step for you? Could you be doing that with your making some broth from your chicken that you're roasting? Because that's something else you could do too if you're roasting a chicken. Could you do 2 chickens or 3 chickens if you're putting them all in the oven and you've got room, right? And then with those bones, instead of having to buy the soup bouillon, chicken bouillon or beef bouillon from the store, could you take all the bones from the pot after you've, cut the meat off or up? Whatever bones you've got left, can you throw them in your crock pot along with some celery, some carrots, an onion, maybe some garlic, even little bits and chunks of things left over from earlier in the week? We have a scraps container, and I've seen them kept on people's counters before, even what looks like a little miniature garbage can kind of, to cut down on the smell. But I don't actually prefer that. I don't think it looks very nice. And I just keep mine in our freezer. And then when it's time, I just dump whatever's in there into our crock pot. And if it gets too full, then we go and dump it in this old tire we have in our backyard that's a compost pile, essentially. And that's that. But you can make crock pot bone broth. You can do it on the stove too, but in the crock pot, I've just found it's easier because then you can forget it for a long time and it doesn't matter, rather than having to keep an eye on it simmering on the stove. But I'll put it in the crock pot on low for 3 or 4 hours maybe. And this is not at all an exact science, but just throw chicken bones, ham bones, anything that's got bones, pork roast would be another example. Throw it in the crock pot, pour some water in there. I don't know, depending on how much broth I'm hoping to get out of it, which would usually be 4 cups. It's about 2 servings for most recipes that I'm going to use it for. I'll call for 2 or 3 cups of bone broth. I'll put that into the crock pot, the bones, 3 or 4 cups of water, maybe more, depends on how many bones there are. Scraps of carrots, onions, celery, garlic, peppers, even jalapenos, which jalapenos we have. We have 37 in our freezer right now because that is the one thing that grew in our garden this summer. It's jalapenos. And what recipe do you know that needs more than one at a time? But you can put those. I started putting them into our pot roast. We have a pot roast about twice a month now, either a deer roast if we've got deer in the freezer, or a chuck roast. But the jalapeno just kind of amps the flavor up very nicely. And of course, we still have a bazillion, like I said, but it's one way to use jalapenos. And they're just frozen in the freezer. By the way, I didn't even chop them up or cut them or anything. They're literally just in a bag in our freezer. Because again, if I'm thawing it, I'm not eating it raw. It's going to be a soft consistency, a soft texture. I don't even worry about it. You could chop it if you want, but that's not happening. All right, you've put things in the crock pot. You've made broth out of them. That is saving a step towards your future self. You've got this nutritious broth now that you've made because all of the collagen and different proteins in the meat have broken down and released from the bone and the little bits of meat that were around the bone. That's great. That's something that you can do towards your future self, your future meals. Another thing to consider is being prepared to eat very much within the season. And that could sound a little bougie, and I'm sure for other people it really is bougie what they mean by that. But I'm just saying that in our experience, there are certain times of the year where we just eat a lot of one particular. This summer, we were the beneficiaries of a large number of tomatoes and cucumbers and zucchini all at once. And we just ate a lot of cucumbers and zucchini and tomatoes for a short period of time. Later on in the summer, friends of ours had sweet corn, and we just ate a lot of sweet corn for 3 weeks. In fact, for I don't know how many years now, I have not bought sweet corn, by which I mean corn on the cob. I've not bought any of it because we just love the kind that these friends make. And I know that nothing at the grocery store is going to compare. And every summer, this is just what happens. They are so generous and so kind to us. They'll show up a couple of times, probably sometimes even twice a week, but at least once a week for, like I said, about 3 weeks. And there are 9 or 10 cobs of corn. We eat them. We eat them every night with supper. We don't have a lot of variety even in how we prepare them. We just boil them on the stove. You could grill them. I'm well aware that there are other ways that you could make them fancy to shake things up and have variety, but particularly during postpartum, variety is not that important to me. What I can get on the table that's quick, that is nutritious, and that most amount of people in my family will eat, those are my priorities, particularly during postpartum. And for that reason, as much as possible, whatever foods are given to us, whatever food is available in large quantities, especially large quantities and inexpensively, we are going to eat that with the season. Then similarly in the fall, when we go up to an apple orchard that is quite a ways away from us now, but is close to where I grew up, very close, I get a giant bag, a peck, is that what it is? I don't know. It's like probably 7 or 8 dozen apples, lots and lots and lots of apples, but they're what are called seconds. You get them for half price. So for $17, I think I got probably 80 or 90 apples. And we give them away to our Grandma Tribe members as a thank you for their kindness to us. You can use them for baking. They're a little imperfect looking, but they're perfect to bake with, but they also taste good. The taste is just exactly as it would be for anything else. They just don't look quite as good. Kind of like how we get our bloopers. They're called blooper chocolates from Russell Stover. There's an outlet about 45 minutes away from here. Every year for Thanksgiving, we buy a 3-pound box of blooper chocolates. Everybody enjoys them. Yeah, they look a little funny. One year, because you don't know what they're going to look like until you open them. You just know they won't be perfect. But one year I opened up the box and it was a whole bunch of broken caramel-filled Russell Stover Easter bunnies. And that's what we had. That's what we had at Thanksgiving with our part of our appetizer tray. But if you are willing to eat what is available to you, what is not exactly perfect looking, and Misfits Market is an example of this too. They're not super cheap, but it's organic food for the most part that's imperfect looking and costs less money. That's something that we do once a month. It's a bit of a splurge for us compared to what we'd otherwise buy. But again, we're doing what we can with the food that's available to us at the price point that we can afford. Save a step cooking. If you're looking to eat seasonally, eat locally with what is available, what is going to cost the least amount of money, it may look like eating a lot of a particular type of food for a short period of time. I could go into what the benefits of that might be nutritionally, but I think it's not necessary. I think it can just be kept simple, particularly for postpartum, by saying what's available to you locally. Are you willing to eat a whole bunch of it for the period of time that it's most fresh, least expensive? Can you work with what other people are willing to give you? And then how can you add something to the meal that you are making right now in order to benefit your future self? If you were cutting up onions and garlic, for instance, or sauteing them for a meal, could you just saute an extra onion? Could you saute some extra garlic cloves and just toss them in the freezer? What can you put in your freezer now that will make your life in the future less stressful? That's the core. That's the core component. And there was one other thing I was going to say. Oh, just a general rule for families to make meal times more pleasant and easier on you as mom, especially if you're the one doing most of the cooking. And in our house, it's a little bit over 50-50 that my husband and I split. I do a little bit more than 50%, but he does plenty of stuff too. He just doesn't really do recipes. So if it's a recipe, I make it. If it's going to be something that doesn't require a recipe, then he makes it. But no matter who's making the meal, a rule that we found very helpful in our household is to always say thanks to whoever cooked it. Thanks for breakfast, Mama. Thanks for supper, Daddy. No matter whether we preferred it or not. And in our rule, in our house, that's just the rule is, especially if you're little, one bite of a thing that you don't prefer. Everybody has one bite of everything. If it's something you don't prefer, you are welcome to supplement your meal with the things that you really do like. And the older you get, the more we are expecting you to have more than one bite. But for instance, with our 4-year-old, our 2-year-old is not old enough yet, but with our almost 4-year-old, 4 years old tomorrow, we make sure that he has one bite of everything. One bite of everything. And then if it's not a meal that he likes, then he can have more of the foods that he does like with that meal. But we always say thanks. Even if it's something we don't prefer, we always say thanks. I think that wraps it up for now, lady. I'll talk to you next week.